Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We are heading into the Christmas week. And guess what? Disturbing new details. Was the homicide of the Reiners preventable? A Justice Department unveils the Epstein files amid some discovery of missing documents. The key role was a civilian tipster in identifying the suspect in the Brown University shooting. We've got this day in legal history, our quote of the day, and wait until you see what our dumb criminal did. Let's talk about it.
Lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below, and hit that little bell for notifications so that you get notice of when we go live or put up new content. I've had several people say in the comments, I had to resubscribe. Somehow they got unsubscribed. So go check it, hit that little bell, make sure you're subscribed, and well, we appreciate you, that's for sure. Listen, if people are coming into your life, or maybe you're just not sure if they're a good person, go to crimetalksearch.com. You can sign up for a background subscription service. When you do, you'll be able to do as many background searches on anyone here in the United States that you want to. So whether you want to do one search or you want to search your entire neighborhood, you can do it. The report is literally prepared while you wait. It's emailed to you, and you can even get updates if new information comes available. You're going to find out social media presence. You're going to find out email addresses associated with somebody, phone numbers. You're going to find out if somebody's married, divorced, liens, judgments. Do they have a criminal history? Are they on one of those sex offender registries? Everything you want to know about somebody, you can find out at crimetalksearch.com. Go sign up today. And remember, you can cancel at any time. So if you want to do your one search, boom, you're done. You want to keep it, use it for investigating cases, keep it as long as you want. crimetalksearch.com. You're going to be happy you did. Also, let me remind you, go to the link below and check out new merch that we have up. Several orders over the weekend. Go check it out. Remember, we can still get it to you. Should be able to get it to you by Christmas if you order today. So let us help you out there. Get what you want for Christmas. All right. Nobody wants slippers, right? You want a Crime Talk shirt. Go with that. Nobody wants a bathrobe. Crime Talk shirt. Gear, sweatshirt, sitting around in your oversized sweatshirt, watching Crime Talk over the holiday season. That's what you want. You know it. Go do it. All right, let's go ahead and open the record for Monday, December 22nd, 2025. And first on the docket, some disturbing new details in the case of the Reiners. That's right. The investigation into the stabbing deaths of the director Rob Reiner and his wife and producer Michelle Singer Reiner continue to unfold with revelations about the hours preceding the incident and ongoing legal proceedings involving their son, Nick Reiner. Now, Nick, this guy's 32 years old. He faces 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances alleging multiple murders and the use of a deadly weapon, a knife. Now, the couple was discovered deceased in their Brentwood home on December 14th, 2025, having suffered multiple sharp force injuries. Now, reports indicate that on the evening prior to the discovery of the bodies, Rob, Michelle, and Nick Reiner attended a holiday gathering hosted by comedian Conan O'Brien. Multiple sources describe Nick Reiner's behavior at the event as erratic and unsettling, including instances in which he reportedly interrupted conversations, stared at guests, and asked whether individuals were famous, causing discomfort among many of the partygoers. Now, an argument ensued between Rob Reiner and his son, escalating to the point where some guests considered contacting police. Now, according to accounts from attendees cited in various media outlets, at least one guest proposed calling 911 with discussion centering on the possibility of placing Nick Reiner under a mental health hold due to concerns about his stability. However, Conan O'Brien is reported to have intervened, stating that he did not wish to have the police called to his residence, emphasizing that it was his home and his party. No calls were placed from that location that evening. Now, there have been conflicting reports regarding the intensity of the altercation, with some attendees denying a significant confrontation even occurred at all. Following the incident, the Reiners reportedly apologized to the host and then departed the party. This has drawn speculation as to whether earlier intervention might have altered the course of the events that evening. Now, though police and sources emphasize that responsibility lies solely with the perpetrator, Nick Reiner. So Nick Reiner's history of substance abuse and recent reports of schizophrenia diagnosis, coupled with adjustments to his medication regimen in the weeks prior, have been highlighted as potential factors influence his mental state. Now, some people are going to indicate that these changes may have contributed to the increased erratic behavior. In related legal developments, attention has turned to the California's Slayer statute, a provision that prohibits an individual convicted of intentionally killing another from inheriting from the victim's estate. Now, the Reiner estate is estimated to be valued at approximately $200 million. And most people will note that upon conviction, Nick Reiner would be disqualified from receiving any inheritance, with assets potentially redistributed among the remaining beneficiaries, such as his siblings, more than likely, or charities that the Reiners may have put in their estate planning. Anyway, a separate question pertains to the funding of Nick Reiner's defense. He is represented by Alan Jackson, known for his high-profile cases, where costs can exceed millions of dollars. Now, while the Slayer statute bars inheritance post-conviction, it does not preclude the use of estate funds for legal defenses prior to a verdict. Now, let's say the trustee or family members may have authorized disbursements for funds from trusts or the estate to ensure adequate representation, potentially at the discretion of siblings or other fiduciaries that are handling potential estate matters. So there's been some reports, and this is, I admit, speculation, that such arrangements may reflect a family's effort to provide competent counsel, though no official confirmation has come yet from the family. So Nick Reiner has not yet entered a plea with the arraignment scheduled for January 7th of next year. The case remains under active investigation, and prosecutors have yet to decide on pursuing the death penalty. Now, this obviously has affected everybody in the community, and there's been a lot of talk about it. But really what this comes down to is a potential defense. All right. Will there be consequences? So you got the potential for a not guilty by reason of insanity plea coming up in Reiner's case, or a plea of just simply not guilty. Now, the not guilty by reason of insanity remains obviously a potential strategy for the Nick Reiner's defense, given reports of schizophrenia diagnosis and longstanding substance abuse issues. Now, under California law, the insanity defense follows the McNaughton rule as codified in the Penal Code Section 25B, and a defendant is considered legally insane if, due to a mental disease or defect, they were incapable of knowingly or understanding the nature of the quality of their act or acts of distinguishing the right from wrong at the time of the offense. So then you got to go to the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, 5th edition. And that's published by the American Psychiatric Association, which classifies schizophrenia as a psychotic disorder characterized by delusions, hallucinations, disorganized thinking, grossly disorganized or abnormal motor behavior, and negative symptoms persisting for at least 6 months with significant functioning impairment. So while a DSM-5 diagnosis of schizophrenia may support evidence of a qualifying mental disease or defect, it does not automatically satisfy the legal insanity standard. Expert testimony would be necessary to establish that the disorder directly impaired the defendant's cognitive or moral understanding during the alleged acts during that specific time. Now, success with an NGR plea is very rare in California as well as nationwide. Now, the defense is raised in less than 1% of all felony cases, with successful acquittals occurring in approximately 25% of those instances, resulting in an overall NGR verdict rate of about 0.26%. Now, if successful, the NGRI finding leads to a commitment to a state forensic hospital rather than to prison, with the duration often indefinite until the individual is deemed no longer a substantial danger to others. Now, there's been some studies that indicate that such commitments frequently exceed the length of a potential prison sentence for comparable offenses. Now, that wouldn't be the case in a murder case because obviously the penalty would be life without parole. Now, in contrast, a conviction of the charge of first-degree murder with the special circumstances would likely result in life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, given the multiple victim allegations. Now, prosecutors have indicated that the decision on pursuing the death penalty is pending and will consider that specifically, they're going to consider family input. However, it is considered unlikely that they would pursue the death penalty given these mental health issues. I think it's highly unlikely, and I think it's a 0% chance of the death penalty being pursued. Now, should the NGRI plea be pursued by the defense, the prosecution's going to have to contend that any psychotic symptoms were primarily induced by voluntary substance use rather than an independent mental disease. So, under California law, and the penal code out there, it prohibits an insanity defense based solely on addiction to or abuse of intoxicating substances, even if the long-term use causes brain damage, unless settled insanity persists beyond the period of intoxication. Now, this distinction could prove pivotal, as Reiner's documented history of addiction may lead prosecutors to argue that the drug-induced impairment rather than schizophrenia explain this conduct. So there's a lot to talk about here. All right. Could this have been preventable? You know, nobody wants to call the police, particularly at a Christmas party, right? When you have your friends. Now, I'm sure Conan O'Brien is probably sitting there wondering, my gosh, if I had called the police, maybe Nick Reiner would have been taken away, maybe a mental health hold put on him, and his close friends would still be alive today. Well, I hope he's not thinking that. There's no way that he could have known that this is what was going to take place whatsoever. And it also shows you what takes place so many times when there's people with mental health issues. Everybody wants to protect and cover for that particular person's conduct, ultimately enabling them to where they get to the point. Now, I think the more interesting issue here is going to be the NGRI versus, drug inducement. All right. Could they possibly do this? Do you think that Alan Jackson has, the top doctors out there doing what they can, getting all the medical records for an NGRI defense? Absolutely. They would be silly if they didn't do that. All right. It's going to take some time to do that, but that's what it's going to be. And then on the other side, you're going to have this guy, Nick Reiner, who is a drug addict. Let's call it for what it is. And whether he has mental health issues and they were untreated or undiagnosed and they didn't get the meds right, what have you, if he was self-medicating that night and they can prove, which would be difficult, unless, there's something evidence at the house. I'm not aware of any blood draws or anything like that had taken place. Maybe there's somebody that can say, oh yeah, we did pills or we did drugs together with Nick Reiner. The chances of that probably slim to none. But, like I said, you can't sit. I had a client, it was during COVID, and he got all his COVID money, and he and his buddy sat around smoking pot for like 3 weeks straight. And he literally turned into a paranoid, psychosis event. And, he goes to the airport and he starts pounding on a flight attendant just because. And, basically he detoxed and he was fine, but it was totally drug induced. So he couldn't go NGRI. Did I think that he really understood what was going on? No, I think he was in such a state of psychosis that he thought that the flight attendant was someone that was going to harm him. It's bizarre stuff. Maybe a jury will ultimately have to decide whether it was schizophrenia or drug inducement. And if you've ever dealt with anybody that has schizophrenia, it is some weird stuff, ladies and gentlemen, because sometimes they can appear completely normal. And then you start talking to them and you start thinking, oh, this is going to be one of those type of cases. All right. And I've always said this. It's always the people that are malingering, faking mental health disorders, are always the ones like, oh, I need a competency evaluation. The voices are talking to me. Fakers, all right? The people that really, truly have schizophrenia, they've been questioned over the years. They don't want to be diagnosed with that. They don't want to be sent to the state hospital for that. They are going to deny that they have it, and they're going to do everything to not cooperate with that. It's very weird, but the paranoia is unbelievable. I once had a client with schizophrenia, refused to take any meds, and literally refused to see us for about 6 weeks straight. And then one day, he was just kind of fine. Very odd. Failed miserably on probation as well. because he wouldn't address the issues. His families wouldn't address the issues. They tried, but you can only do what somebody's willing to actually participate on. It's going to be interesting as well as it relates to the funding of this case. All right. There's lots of stories coming out that saying that Romy Reiner was scared of Nick. All right. Scared of the two other remaining siblings, not the step child as well, but the two remaining siblings of the Reiners are apparently quite distraught. I cannot see or envision why they would want to contribute to the defense of their brother. I mean, there's obviously been hostilities, and if anybody's ever dealt with somebody that's had drug and alcohol issues in a family, it can literally tear a family apart. And everybody's probably been warning and saying, don't do this, you're enabling him. And then all of a sudden he's allegedly done this. Why would they want to do that? I mean, whether he's going to be represented by the public defender or Alan Jackson, I think the Reiners should be like, send him to the public defender's office. Let them deal with it. It's going to get interesting, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to get very, very interesting before this case gets resolved. Next on the docket, that guy named Jeff. That's right, Jeffrey Epstein. Files had been turned over, but apparently not everything. Now, listen, when we started our channel and all the stuff with the guy named Jeff, we couldn't say the word Epstein on our show. We would get shut down. They would demonetize it. So remember, we used to have to hold up little flags and we say a guy named Jeff and have his name on a little stick or on a stick. And we would hold it up. Like so many things when we started this channel early on, we couldn't say the word murder. We couldn't say other words. We would get demonetized. And it took years to get that fixed. And now everybody and their brother's doing it finally because, well, Google changed their minds. But anyway, I told you before, I don't think it's going to be what everybody thought there was going to be in these Epstein files. Okay. And I don't want to say I had some inside track or something along those lines, but as I told you before, we know the attorneys, CrimeTalk people here know the attorneys that handled the Ghislaine Maxwell case. They're from Denver, Colorado. And of course, hey, why don't you come on the show? No, I can't do that. Well, is there something good or juicy? Well, is it really good and juicy when they release all this stuff? And the response was generally, they didn't say specifically, but it was like, yeah, there's nothing there. All right. So we'll have to wait and see. They got some pictures. All the stuff that really has come out has been turned over before in some way or another, like the photographs and things like that. Maybe there's some more detail, but it's kind of the same people. Now, yes, the grand jury stuff was completely redacted as I was going through it the other night, but what can you do? So far, no smoking guns whatsoever. Most statute of limitations may have run on most of these people. The chances of anybody being prosecuted, well, slim to none. Hey, if somebody did something inappropriate, I say prosecute them. I'm just telling you, I don't expect any more prosecutions coming from this other than Ghislaine Maxwell, which is done. All right. So on December 19th, the United States Justice Department released thousands of pages of related documents to the sex trafficking investigation of financier Jeffrey Epstein, primarily from his properties in New York and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Lots of pictures of the apartment inside, not a whole lot of anything. Now, Epstein died back in 2019 while waiting trial. And obviously, he allegedly victimized numerous underage girls, some as young as 14, by paying them for sexual acts and recruiting others into his little network. The files reveal new details about why federal charges were dropped back in 2008, including concerns from the former U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta about the victim's credibility. However, at least 16 key files, including grand jury subpoenas, have vanished from the DOJ's online repository, raising some questions about maybe a little bit of oversight. The documents also include photos from Epstein's home showing celebrities like President Bill Clinton, though no wrongdoing is alleged. Victims remain unidentified in redactions, and the release continues on a rolling basis. Like I said, I think it's going to be disappointment. I was hoping there's going to be something juicy about it. I was hoping there would be lots of prosecutions. We'd have an endless things to talk about. But I think it's a big nothing. We'll wait and see. Next, a civilian was the one that cracked the Brown University shooting, not the police officers taking their victory lap. So the investigation into the deadly shooting at Brown University on December 13th, which claimed the lives of 2 students and injured 9 others, reached a resolution following the discovery of the suspect's body. Claudio Manuel Neves Valente, a 48-year-old Portuguese national and former brief enrollee at Brown, was found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound in a storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire on December 18th. Now, police have linked him not only to the campus attack, but also to the subsequent fatal shooting of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology professor Nuno F.G. Loureiro at his home in Brookline, Massachusetts on December 15th. A critical breakthrough in this case came not from the initial law enforcement leads, but from detailed observations provided by a homeless individual identified in court records as John, who had previously attended Brown University. Now, according to the affidavit released by the Providence Police, John encountered Neves Valente in the basement of the Barris and Hawley building, the site of the shooting, hours before the incident. He described a tense interaction, noting unusual behavior of the two as they passed each other multiple times. After the shooting, John posted on Reddit detailing a gray Nissan sedan with Florida license plates, possibly a rental, that he had observed Neves Valente approaching and securing with a key fob. He specified the vehicle's location near the campus and urged police to investigate. This post, initially one among hundreds of tips, prompted other individuals to alert police. Surveillance footage later confirmed the vehicle's presence, matching John's description. Investigators traced the rental car equipped with Florida plates that Neves Valente later replaced with an unregistered Maine license plate to a Boston agency where records and video identified him as the person responsible for the rental of the vehicle. License plate readers and additional camera footage further corroborated the vehicle's movements, and this chain of evidence led police to the abandoned car near the New Hampshire storage unit where Neves Valente's body was located, along with 2 firearms consistent with those used in the crimes. Now, the Rhode Island Attorney General, Peter Narana, credited John's information with significantly advancing the investigation, stating, "It blew the case right open." John, described by sources as articulate and reliable, later approached police in person to provide further details, including confirmation of the surveillance images. He reported sheltering in the building's basement, highlighting potential security considerations for the campus. And earlier in the probe, police briefly detained and released a separate person of interest, underscoring the challenges and obviously a multi-agency manhunt involving the police there, the FBI, and other entities. Now, Neves Valente had enrolled as a graduate student in physics in Brown back in 2000 through 2001, attended classes primarily in the Barris and Hawley building before withdrawing in 2003 without earning his degree. He initially entered the United States on a student visa in 2000 and obtained permanent residency in 2017 through the Diversity Immigration Visa Program. He and the MIT professor had attended the same undergraduate program in Portugal from 1995 through 2000. Now, the victims of the Brown shooting were undergraduates Ella Cook, 19, of Alabama, and Muhammad Aziz Umakrozvaz, 18, of Virginia. Umurzokov. I know, I'm sure I mispronounced it, so you try it. Anyway, the motive remains under investigation with no indications that specific individuals in the classroom were specifically targeted. Now, obviously, in response to the suspect's immigration history, the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, announced a pause in the Diversity Immigrant Visa Program, citing prior concerns raised during the previous administration. That's a weird one. Now, I remember watching when it all broke, like a week ago Saturday, and they just looked dazed and confused. Nobody knew what was going on. And then ultimately the case gets solved and they all, oh, sure, we arrested the wrong guy. We thought we did it. But in reality, they got the wrong guy. And it was a homeless guy cracked the case, even though they had all the video as well. Interesting, isn't it? You got to dig a little deeper to find out it was the homeless guy who put it on Reddit. And then the police finally got to it when they said, hey, why aren't you checking out this guy? A week later, the guy had been dead in his storage unit for 2 days by the time the police got there. Providence police, the Brown police, the FBI, let's face it, they kind of got lucky on this one. And the guy not only killed 2 people at Brown, then he drove up the road and killed a professor at MIT. Not exactly the best police work ever. Next on the docket, this day in legal history, December 22nd, 1807, the Embargo Act was passed as the urging of U.S. President Thomas Jefferson. The act barred trade with any foreign nation to avoid American entry into the Napoleonic Wars in Europe. However, the act proved unenforceable and was replaced with the Non-Intercourse Act, which barred trade with France and Great Britain. And on December 22nd, 2010, President Barack Obama signed legislation repealing the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. Next on the docket, our quote of the day. Let's talk about a notable judicial quote regarding Christmas. Let's go to the United States Supreme Court decision in Lynch v. Donnelly, 1984, authored by Chief Justice Warren Burger. Quote, "The display engenders a friendly community spirit of goodwill in keeping with the season. The nativity scene may well have special meaning to those whose faith includes a celebration of religious masses, but none who sense the origins of the Christmas celebration would fail to be aware of its religious implications." End quote. Well, what's all that talking about? Well, that passage reflects the court's reasoning in upholding a public holiday display that included a nativity scene, obviously emphasizing the dual secular and religious aspects of Christmas while finding no violation of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Obviously, it underscores the holiday's longstanding cultural and historical recognition in American society. I mean, who's going to be the judge that bans Christmas? No one's going to do that. And finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Check out this video, ladies and gentlemen. In a striking example of poor judgment, a 21-year-old man transformed a routine shoplifting investigation into a life-threatening confrontation with law enforcement at a Walmart in Canton, Ohio. I love Canton, Ohio. I picked up CrimeTalk 1 in Canton, Ohio after an expensive inspection and got to spend many, many days in Canton going back and forth waiting for the thing to be done. Lovely people. I may have even been by this Walmart. Anyway, on December 18th, 2025, the Canton police responded to reports of a shoplifting at the Walmart located at Atlantic Boulevard Northeast. The officers detained Shane C.L. Newman, who was 21, and his companion, Katrina Jeffrey, who was 23. They were in the loss prevention office waiting for the police to show up, right? Police show up. During questioning, Newman suddenly produces a loaded handgun and attempts to fire it at the police officer. Fortunately, the firearm malfunctioned, likely due to no round being chambered, while forcing Newman to rack the slide, which provided critical seconds for intervention. A quick-thinking Walmart loss prevention associate lunged at Newman, disarming him and assisting the officer in subduing the suspect. No injuries were reported. Police recovered a loaded weapon with approximately 50 pills believed to be MDMA from Newman, who was prohibited from possessing firearms due to a prior conviction. Newman now faces multiple felony charges, including attempted murder, felonious assault, and assault on a peace officer. And having a weapon under a disability, his bond is set at $1 million. Miss Jeffrey faces a complicity to robbery charges. And, this just shows how quickly a minor situation can escalate. When you see a lot of those body cam videos, it's a simple traffic stop. And next thing you know, this goes on. I mean, do you think this Walmart security guard signed up for this? He probably left the police thinking, I don't need to get shot at. And then he almost gets shot and saves a police officer from getting shot. Anyway, look at this video. It's worth watching a couple times. Anyway, just shows you how stupid people can be. All right. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk. And remember, the Constitution matters.